Whenever a song is made, think about some of your favorite songs, doesn't matter what the genre is. A lot of times, if they're popular enough, they get remixed. I know there was a song, the old song, remember Whitney Houston covered the song Higher Love. There was a song, I'm trying to think of another one. I know Dolly Parton did a 9 to 5, very famous song, very popular song. Shout out to Dolly, pride of the state of Tennessee. A lot of great songs get remixed throughout history. And oftentimes the whole point of the remix, whatever the DJ is going to try and maneuver and try and make it out to be, the whole point is for it to be maybe a little bit catchier, maybe not necessarily better, but more like upbeat and fun and exciting. That was last night. Chiefs-Ravens 2024 regular season opener was exactly the same as the 2023 AFC Championship game. It was just funner. It was more remix. There was more points on the board. You have the Kansas City Chiefs, I'll start with, who had this uncanny ability to make the plays when they need to be made, but more so than that. A year ago, we know the weakness of the Kansas City Chiefs was the wide receiving core. They had one of the 3 or 4 best defenses in the NFL. Mahomes had a down regular season by his standards. So did Travis Kelce. But the dynamic aspect of the Kansas City Chiefs offense that we did not see a year ago. Yes, a lot of it was the drop passes, but a lot of it was some of these guys can't separate. Like Kadarius Toney, his issue with the drops, he could separate, he just couldn't catch a pass to save his life. Sky Moore couldn't separate. Rashee Rice, rookie year, wasn't quite ready to step in that role yet, and that made Kelce's job all the more difficult. Well, what'd you see last night? Well, you saw Rashee Rice absolutely abuse. It was unbelievable over and over. He had over 100 yards receiving last night. Absolutely abused the Baltimore Ravens in the slot time and time again, almost on the same route, it seemed like, over the middle across the field. Rashee Rice is more comfortable. Travis Kelce didn't have that much of an impact. He made one play off an insane Mahomes scramble to his right to set up a big first down for Kansas City in the first half. Noah Gray was effective. You know, if he's a guy that can take a little bit of the heat off of Kelce as he gets up there in age, he is 35 years old, entering year 12, that'll be key. And we know Isaiah Pacheco, by the way, can run the football. But in a game where Kansas City's O-line was kind of hit and miss, let's be honest. Mahomes was under pressure quite a bit, as was Lamar Jackson. I thought both offensive lines kind of got worked by the other team's defensive line. And we know that's a lot of that is a symptom of not playing in the preseason. Kansas City does play in the preseason. Baltimore, not as much. But we know offensive line play early in the season is just not as good as it is late season. Just historically, that's not the case. So the Chiefs and Ravens, especially the Ravens O-line, I think will get better as the season progresses. But a lot of the things for the Kansas City Chiefs, a lot of the aspects, Rice, Kelce, Mahomes, Pacheco, average offensive line, average to above average offensive line, mostly the same. Defense played well. What was the difference in the Kansas City Chiefs offense? It's what we haven't seen from them in 3 years. Xavier Worthy is a kid that I did have a lot of skepticism around heading into last year's or this past NFL draft. I did. He's small. He's really skinny. Now he can absolutely fly. What do you run? Like a 4.21 40? Crazy. Can absolutely fly. Just didn't trust him in terms of durability. And by the way, we're one game in. I don't want to overreact to that. But what is going to happen now? And you saw him score those 2 touchdowns. One of the beautiful reverse play that Andy Reid drew up. And then obviously on the busted coverage for the Baltimore Ravens down the right sideline is that he now gives this Chiefs offense a dynamic ability that they simply have not had, not just last year, but the last couple of years. I mean, if you think about the last 2 years ago when the Chiefs won their second Super Bowl with Mahomes, that was when Juju Smith-Schuster was there. That was when both Toney and Sky Moore scored in that Super Bowl against the Eagles. Now, I don't know if Sky Moore's on the team. I know for a fact Toney isn't. Make anybody work. Is they were going to beat you death by 1,000 cuts. And the difference then is also Kelce was 2 years younger. He was more productive then than I think he's going to be now. I made the prediction coming to the season that I thought by year's end, Sam Laporta of the Detroit Lions would be regarded as the best tight end in football. That said, Kelce can still be effective, but you need guys to take that load off of him. But if you have a guy that can make the defense respect you, they're not going to put a single high safety as it did constantly over the course of the season last year against the Chiefs. If there's a guy on the outside that they've got to respect, if there's a guy that on reverse plays like you saw last night where the blocking for Kansas City was, run to perfection. Creed Humphrey, I think he was moving like 15 miles an hour, something crazy on that play. If you've got that on the outside, he doesn't have to be Tyreek Hill. By the way, I'm not comparing Xavier Worthy to Tyreek Hill. That'd be blasphemy, in the words of the great Stephen A. Smith. Tyreek Hill's the best receiver, second best receiver in the league. but nobody for Kansas City. You don't have to be Tyreek Hill to be able to stretch the defense, make them respect you, and give not only Travis Kelce and Noah Gray opportunities over the middle, but you saw last night, Rashee Rice, who led the team in receiving yards. If that's kind of the identity of the Kansas City Chiefs, where they're going to stretch the defense with Xavier Worthy and open it up for everybody else, boy, is that not going to make Mahomes' job a lot easier as the season progresses? It's going to make Kelce's job easier. It's going to make Andy Reid's job easier as the season goes on and on and on. But why was it similar? And why was it a remix to the AFC Championship game, you ask? Because Kansas City, now they were favored in this game. The line, I took Kansas City to cover -3, and we saw that last play at the end, which I'll get to later, was that close to Kansas City, to Baltimore covering +3. What you saw right there over the course of that game was a Chiefs team who, in terms of their up and down roster, top to bottom roster, Baltimore's probably better than Kansas City. They got more playmakers on the defensive side of the football. Offensively, you got Rashad Bateman, you've got Zay Flowers, you got Mark Andrews, you got Isaiah Likely, who obviously his toe was out in that last play, but Isaiah Likely had the game of his life last night. It was great. Derrick Henry didn't make much of an impact. You assume he'll be better. I didn't think the Derrick Henry signing, by the way, was as big as a lot of folks thought, but he'll get better as the course of the season goes on, I think. So top to bottom, you think Baltimore's roster was better. That's how we felt a year ago. Baltimore killed themselves with self-defeating penalties. We saw that last year. We saw Lamar Jackson, take shots down the field and miss badly. That's what we saw in the AFC Championship game as well. You look up and down the field. The Baltimore Ravens, just like in the AFC Championship game, ran more plays than the Kansas City Chiefs did. Moved the ball fine. But you had, obviously, Lamar Jackson. They didn't move the ball well on this drive, but Lamar had the fumble inside the inside his own, red zone, if you will, inside the 20-yard line. And then, obviously, as you drive down the field, they only go 1 for 4 in the red zone against the Chiefs. Justin Tucker missed a field goal. It was a Baltimore, and this is why I said this coming into this game, and I said it, go back and look in May. This game could define the Baltimore Ravens season, win or lose. And I picked them to lose. I felt back in May that they were going to lose, and I stuck with that. If you look at the last, or I shouldn't say the last 4 teams, but 4 recent teams, and we've showed the graphic, that lost to a team in the playoffs and then played them again in the week 1 opener. The 4 teams that lost, the last 4 teams that lost, if you want to be exact, Texans in 2020 against the Chiefs, who was next? I think it was the Falcons against the Eagles in 2018, the Panthers against the Broncos in 2016, and the Vikings versus the Saints in 2010. All of those teams lost to a certain team in the playoffs, played them again in week 1, and lost again. All of them missed the playoffs. Now, I don't think Baltimore's going to miss the playoffs because I believe too much in Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, and the organizational structure of the Baltimore Ravens to pick them to miss the playoffs entirely. But it's going to be all they can do to get in. And I think you saw a level of undiscipline with the penalties. I think you saw Lamar Jackson, credit to him, this game meant a lot to him, as it should. It's the defending champs on the road at Arrowhead Stadium. It should mean a lot. But Lamar was taking some shots yesterday, man. I think he would have 16 rush attempts. He was getting absolutely blasted by Kansas City Chiefs defensive backs and linebackers throughout the course of that football game. You consider the fact that, again, with the Ravens' entire identity being run the football, they had to go away from that because Kansas City built the lead that they built. Kansas City was better situationally. Baltimore struggled, 1 for 4 in the red zone, had just as many turnovers as the Kansas City Chiefs did. When you lose to a team in the playoffs and you're thinking about them non-stop for 8 months, and you lose to them again, and lose the way that you did, I think, honest to God, this is the worst possible way the Baltimore Ravens could have lost to the Chiefs. If they were going to lose, this is the worst way. I shouldn't say second best way. If Kansas City Chiefs had blown the doors off the Ravens, which I don't think anybody thought was going to happen, that would have been disastrous. That would have been the worst way. The second worst way would have been the way that game played out last night, where over the course of, after the first 2 drives, where Ravens scored in their first drive, KC scored in their first, over the course of the next 3.5 quarters, KC outplayed Baltimore throughout. Moved the ball. I shouldn't say it will, but moved the ball in key situations. They were good on 3rd down. They played more disciplined than the Ravens did. But then at the end, Lamar pulls off a really impressive drive, and then misses. I'll get to this in a moment. Misses a wide open Zay Flowers in the end zone, and then obviously Isaiah Likely at the end by an inch missed the game-tying or potentially game-winning touchdown had they got a 2-point conversion after that. That's the second worst way the Baltimore Ravens could have lost short of a blowout, where you're close, you're almost... It's the letdown. Just like when you lost the Kansas City Chiefs back in the AFC Championship game by 7 points, and in this game by 7 points. It's the Chiefs, if these two teams meet in the playoffs, the psychological edge that Kansas City will have. Last year, I thought it was maybe not universal, maybe not unanimous. Like Kansas City, they're going to win this football game. I'm sorry, the Ravens are going to win this football game. They're at home. They got the home field advantage, MVP of the league, best team in the regular season. The Chiefs had their worst regular season in the Mahomes era. The offense can't do anything. Ravens got the best defensive league. All these reasons. And situationally, they were putrid. They weren't as bad yet last night as they were in that AFC Championship game, but they were, I don't want to use the word choked, but there was a lot of situations where that word at least came into your vocabulary in a certain regard. So listen, for Kansas City, I don't know what Xavier Worthy's going to do over the course of this season. I was skeptical about him coming in the draft, but my takeaway from when he was taken by Kansas City was, well, if there's anybody that can make him work, it's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And if he's able, he doesn't have to be Tyreek Hill, but if he can be on the outside, be that consistent deep threat to be able to, the other team's got to put another safety out there. You can't just go single high constantly and worry about Kansas City on these short 6-yard completions to Travis Kelce. Brings a completely new dynamic to that offense and frees up, again, Kelce, Noah Gray, Rashee Rice, as you saw last night. I'm not saying this is going to be like the 2018 Kansas City offense when Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns. I can say it's going to be way better than last year's. That's what I do know. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.